video, internet stuff. So I want to talk a little bit more about SensorNet because it has the most, I think, relevance in terms of it's got lots of moving parts, and we're still working on it. In fact, Peter and I spent the last 2 days doing some work on this. But basically, the idea is you hook a camera up to your Wi-Fi, you have it push images to us. We have a cloud service that grabs all those images. In some cases, it'll transcode those images into a motion JPEG stream that you can view live. We do motion detection. We'll save events for you when things happen. We keep a 30-day archive. We do some video analytics, so we try to pull out the stuff we think is important and show that to you. We have lots of fun features, like you can create a clip and share it on Facebook if something interesting happens. You can have guest access for your cameras. You can have live embed widgets. So kind of like you can embed a YouTube video, you can embed your SensorNet camera. So I'm going to put one down here. Michael's helping me find a place to put a camera that points it at the beach so I can see the kite surfers live. And so hopefully we'll have that up before too long. But this is kind of a slide that gives you an idea of the architecture of the back end. So these are kind of the functional pieces that go into SensorNet, right? So the cameras are uploading lots of data. We have a load balancing proxy here that basically takes those uploads and balances them across a bunch of compute nodes. Those compute nodes store those images. There's also a daemon which multicasts those streams out to anybody that happens to be watching. So if a lot of people would be looking at this kite surfing camera, the guy who's, we're trying to get somebody to put this on their balcony, right? We don't want to kill his bandwidth, right? We don't want 100 people or 1,000 people looking at the camera at once and killing his network, right? So what happens is these images come up, we are storing those images. So there's only one image, right, that comes up, but then 1,000 people may view it, or a million people may view that. And so that is done on our bandwidth, right, on our dime, right? So that's what makes it more scalable, for instance. Those images are also run through a motion detection system. We call this FCS. It basically is just motion detection. It's our internal name, really. It stands for FTP camera scanner. But basically what it does is it runs some computer vision algorithms. If it finds motion detection, it'll keep track of that in the database and say, oh, this camera's got some motion on it. Let's put that in the database. Let's stick the image in S3 so we save it for later. If you have alerts turned on, it'll go out to a thing called Alert Deliverer that'll send out email and SMS alerts. That's what Peter and I were working on today. Of course, WS is our website, so you can go to the website, you can see what's happening. If you're on our website and you see something interesting, you can share it on Facebook or Twitter or YouTube. Cameras can be public or they can be private. So you can also have private cameras that you just share with specific guests. So for instance, I have a camera I might want to just share with my wife, right, or my mother, right, so she can come and check on the playroom, check on the kids, that kind of thing. So those are lots of pieces that go into sort of a typical cloud service, right? So we've got this cloud service that does some interesting stuff. This is all hosted today at Linode. So we have about 100 virtual nodes at Linode that's doing all this work, right? We've got all these uploads happening. So let's compare hosting costs, right, and hosting technologies. So Truvio, when we started Truvio back in 2005, we spent 50 grand on equipment, right? And we went to South San Francisco. We rented a rack in a colo facility. We put that equipment there. We hired guys that knew how to wire it up. We had power and ping, right? So we had some network connectivity. It's expensive, right? And then we also, in our office, right, we had these shuttle PCs. They looked like little boxes, little shoe boxes. We had a rack that we bought from Bed Bath & Beyond, right? And we stuck these things on it. The guy that was our services decided not to charge for incoming bandwidth. It's just the way that typically they're charged on a symmetric basis, and so everybody's serving stuff. They're not ingesting stuff, and so they decided to give us a break and to give anybody a break. So incoming bandwidth is now free. So for all these hosting providers, right? So you can upload tons of crap and they don't charge you anything. So that was great. We probably wouldn't be in business today if that didn't change. Dynamite, we started in 2014 and built the technology out in 2015. There, we went with Amazon Web Service. One of our team members is a Y Combinator alumni, so we got a year free on AWS. and we've been transcoding videos for a year. We've had millions of video views for free, right? I mean, compare that to 50 grand back 2005. And we just got our first monthly bill because we've been on AWS for a year, and it was under $800, right? For massive amounts of videos being ingested and transcoded and served. So it's pretty interesting, right? To think about, if you just have a credit card and an Amazon account, you can start a decent website. This is maybe less interesting, right? The technologies we use. We built Truvio on PHP. We use Memcache, if you know what that is, to help scale it out. SensorNet is basically Ruby on Rails. We do use WordPress for our blog. We get most of our leads through our blog. So at SensorNet, we work with any off-the-shelf camera. So people, will go buy some D-Link camera, and they'll say, what the heck do I do with this thing, right? And they'll do a Google search on their camera model. How do I get this thing to work? They find us, and they go, oh, that's pretty cool. I can hook my camera to this service, and then get recording in the cloud. So we do use WordPress for that, but it's it's one little node somewhere that doesn't cost us much. For Dynamite, we did it. We use something at Amazon called Elastic Beanstalk, and so this is a very scalable cloud infrastructure. And so it's super easy to use. It handles all the scaling for you. Had that existed when we did SensorNet, it would have saved us, I think, a lot of headaches. And in fact, what we're doing now is we're trying to move from an older cloud infrastructure to a newer one, a more modern one. And that's what Elastic Beanstalk is about. It kind of automatically scales your application. Just to kind of compare databases, every website needs a database. We use MySQL pretty much for everything in the first two startups. We also use MongoDB, which is a NoSQL database for stats at SensorNet. Again, you have something where with Truvio and SensorNet, we have to manage our own database, and that's a lot of work. Amazon now has this thing called RDS and a new thing called Aurora, which just makes it kind of one click and you've got a database, and they figure out how to keep it performant and all that. And so it's just gotten much easier, right? So these technologies are really becoming really much more plug and play. It's kind of interesting and great for people that want to develop products. If you're running a website, you want to make sure it's up. You want to make sure it doesn't go down, or if it does go down or something bad happens, you get alerted. In the old days at Truvio, we used Pingdom to kind of ping the website to make sure it's always up. We had Cacti and some custom scripts that sort of do things on the website and send us alerts if something weird happens. At SensorNet, we use a thing plugged into the website, send me an alert, because that means something bad has happened. If you're building a software system, you need to make sure you have source code control. Again, this world has changed in the last 10 or 12 years. We used SDN, which was the popular thing back then. At Truvio, we had it running on our own servers. We were responsible for our own backups. At SensorNet, we went to GitHub, which was new back then. Git is the new hotness in source code control. We use GitHub, which again is a place to store your source code control system. If you don't know what that is, it's basically a way to store your code and keep track of all the changes. And it also allows you to work with people around the world and really control the changes. So you might have a guy here in Puerto Rico writing code and somebody back in San Francisco writing code. If you guys happen to change the same file, the source code control system keeps track of that and lets you merge things together. And if there are conflicts, you can deal with those conflicts. At Dynamite, we use the same source code control system called Git, and we use Bitmail that said, hey, I see you signed up, but you don't have a camera working. Do you need help with choosing a camera? Do you have trouble getting your camera on the internet or whatever? And then it says, respond to us if you have any questions, or here's some tips, right? And we point them at some blog posts. And then that email response, if they reply to that email, it goes into desk.com, and we keep track of it, right? We talk to them, oh, what's your problem? Oh, maybe you should try this and try that. So that's really, I think, a pretty important thing that you should have if you have especially in our case where we have multiple stages of sort of customer transition. If you're going to charge people, you need to figure out how to do that. We use Stripe. which we like. It's unfortunately doesn't work if you have an account in Puerto Rico. We found out recently, but there are ways around it, I think. But anyway, it basically, they store the credit cards. They have subscription models. You can basically, all the code on our website interacts with Stripe, and it keeps track of when they get billed, when they get charged. If they have a 10-camera plan and they delete a camera, and the next billing period comes around, it figures out that they have a credit, right? Because a little bit of a credit because they didn't use their 10-camera plan for the whole last month. So it's a pretty good system. If you have a business on the internet, you should keep stats. There are lots of different stats that you need to think about. At Truvio, all we really cared about was people were using the website, they were searching for video. Maybe you want to see what they're searching for. Maybe you don't want to know what they're searching for. That's a little scary, but especially video search. But basically, we wanted to just make sure that people were using the site, right? At SensorNet, we had Google in the last day. So those are just sort of existing customers that are getting charged. And then we had people that updated their credit cards. And some of them were unpaid. And so what I usually do is I go and I look at those and make sure that when they updated their credit card, that we actually charge them, right? So we've seen some bugs. It's not on the Stripe side. I think it's on our side where we're not always charging them. So this is just some examples. If you're doing a startup, you should think about what are the critical stats that I need to keep track of? And I think for us, make sure people are paying you, right? And if they're giving you your credit card, make sure you're charging it. At Dynamite, it's more about how many people can we get to use the app. And so we've got Google Analytics, so we kind of know what people are doing. But we also have Mixpanel, which is more about different ways people are using the app or the website. And then we have Branch, which is a way of tracking the shares. So if people share a video on WhatsApp or they share it on Facebook, we kind of want to know where that goes and keep track of when people view those things. And so Branch helps you do that. You have a startup, you probably have a team. You have to coordinate that team. There's some great tools for that. Back in the old days, my co-founder was Tim. He would beat on the table every Friday and say, "Why haven't you done what you told me you were going to do?" He was really good at it. And we had weekly status meetings. That's how we did it. We didn't have any we just had email and Tim's notebook. That doesn't really scale or work remotely. At SensorNet, when we first started, I had some guys in Vietnam writing code. We used Pivotal Tracker to keep track of that. As the team grew, we actually started using Redmine in-house. It's another kind of team tracking system. At Dynamite, there's a HBO series called Silicon Valley. People have seen that, and there's a great scene where they're in this house in Palo Alto, and they've got the Kanban board up on the wall, right? And that's the new hot thing. It's like, oh, we're going to use Kanban mechanism for tracking our stuff. And so there's a company called Lean Kit, which has Kanban. So we thought, oh, let's try Kanban. It's the cool new thing, right? It's what the cool kids are doing. I hate it. I don't like it. I wouldn't recommend it, but you might like it. Other tools that I think are kind of useful that I just thought I'd call out. Google Domains, I like that much better than, is Mailhot Forward. So basically, that Adam at sensor.net, basically that forwarding goes to a forwarding system that Mailhot Forward runs, and I can forward that anywhere I want. I can forward to a Yahoo account, a Gmail account, whatever. It's $35 a year. Google Apps is going to be, I don't know, several dollars, I don't know, $5 or $10 per person. I don't actually know what it is, but certainly more. But and it can get more expensive as you go up. And it does a lot of the same things. But this is, if you're a startup, you need to save money, right? And do things on the cheap. So look into that. DigitalOcean is a cheap cloud hosting platform. Their nodes start at $5 a month. Our blog runs on one of their nodes. There's a cool system if you're thinking about building websites very cheaply again, or that run really fast. There's a system called Hugo, which is a static website generator. It's good for blogs, or good for static websites. Again, if you have a static website, with just content on it, like our blog, it's like a bunch of how-to articles. Super cheap to create that. You can make it look really good, and you can just stick it in Dropbox or Amazon S3. Costs you almost nothing to host that. So much less complicated than than running WordPress. We're using Docker these days to encapsulate all of our stuff. So Docker allows you to kind of bundle up all the packages and libraries that you need to run your application, and then you can then move those containers around anywhere. So you can run them at Amazon, you can run them at Linode, you can run them wherever you want. And it also makes you more precise about what software packages you need, right? So we had this problem at SensorNet where we would use certain libraries, and then those libraries would suddenly not be supported anymore, right? So, oh, we need to upgrade, and you just change a couple lines of code, and suddenly things start breaking. And so Docker lets you encapsulate that and sort of lock it down, and then you can just move that container around. So check that out if you're deploying a lot of unusual things. So we talked about a lot of different kinds of technologies. How do you choose, right? And so I think you should think about your team strengths. Are you a Microsoft house? Are you a Ruby house? Are you a PHP house? The next engineer you hire, the pool of AWS engineers is much larger than the pool of Google Cloud engineers. So that's something to think about, right? If you're going to hire somebody, how big is the pool for you? And then ask people, right? Ask people that are using it. So find people that are using different technologies. What do you think? Are you happy with that? Are you glad you chose it, or are you not glad? So that's pretty much all I had to say. I have a little video that I think epitomizes what I was talking about. And you want to have the right tools when you do a startup. Doing a startup is scary. It's sort of like jumping off a bridge, sort of like bungee jumping. But it's a fun adventure. Just make sure that you've got some good tools and a good support team. And this is me in New Zealand a couple years ago. 43 meters above the water, and I don't get hurt standing. That's New Zealand. Yeah. So anyway, that's. I thought that was a fun video. So. I wanted to mention one more thing. There's this company called Lyft, or MHL Custom. Does anybody know this company? It's a Puerto Rican company. They make the best hydrofoil kiteboards in the world, and they're here in Puerto Rico. So I figured I got a bunch of Puerto Rican entrepreneurs. I should, do a shout out to one of your own. So I'm learning to do this. I can't do it. So it's hydrofoiling and kiteboarding at the same time, which is hard to do. But if you go down to Ocean Park, you'll see people doing it. And you can go almost directly upwind with these things. They're super efficient, but they're hard to learn. Anyway, that's all I had. Thanks.
All right, so. Questions?
Playing around with video for a while. At the previous, my first startup that I was at, I did a bunch of internet video stuff, and my co-founder Tim approached me and said, "Hey, I want to start a company. Let's do this together." And what we started doing is we started experimenting, right? So we spent sort of, we would get together every Thursday, right? And we'd have lunch and we'd talk about ideas. And then we'd go off and say, "Oh, I'm going to experiment with this." And he'd say, "I'm going to work on maybe a video crawler." And I thought maybe, I had some idea it was more like Netflix, right, at this time. It's like, oh, there's all this stuff out there on BitTorrent. Wouldn't it be cool if we built like a search engine for that, right? And you could watch all this cool stuff. And so I guess it followed my interests. And then, I just happened to find a good guy that I thought I could work with, a smart guy. For SensorNet, I was solving a problem that I had. We had moved to Vietnam, and I wanted to watch my house in California and Nevada and keep track of things. So I just wanted to build this, and I tried to use off-the-shelf products, and they didn't work. I thought, well, I'm a cloud video guy, I should just build that. So I did. And for Dynamite, the team were people that I met through the previous company, right? Through Truvio, right? So Truvio had been acquired by AOL, and the guy that was our champion at AOL said, "Hey, I got this great, cool idea for an app, and maybe you could work with us on it." And I just looked at the team, and I thought I can learn a lot from these guys. So that again, I think the theme is, at least not for the later ones, are more like, what can I learn and what am I interested in, and can I work with these guys? For the earlier ones, they were just interesting problems, I think. But yeah, trying to see if it's real, right? You know, does this thing seem like it could really work? You know, again, talking to people that I knew to see what they thought. I think it's dangerous though to talk to people, right? So when we started, I mean, Truvio is a great example, right? So we started Truvio, and you know, I had been at Inktomy, which is one of the first search engine companies, and then you know, fast forward to 2005 or 2004, and we're like, hey, let's build a video search engine. And I talked to people that I knew from Inktomy. I'm like, what? You're building a search engine? There's Google, right? Yahoo has some video thing too, right? And I'm like, well, that's not exactly what, you know, people try to tell me not to do it, right? They're like, and so I think you have to be a little careful about who you talk to about things. You know, in the end, I mean, we would meet with investors and we'd say, and this is before YouTube, right? And we'd say, video on the internet's going to be huge. And they're like, most of them are like, you're crazy. Video on the internet's like Real Player with a little postage stamp size, you know, video that's blurry. But we were right? We had some technology that gave us an advantage, and it blew up, right? And we just, you know, got lucky, I think, also. I mean, it was good timing, but so yeah, I think you should talk to your advisors or people you trust, but also trust your gut, you know. Yeah.
Can I ask kind of the other side of that question? What happened to Truvio?
Truvio was acquired by AOL for $50 million.
So there you go.
Yeah. Then AOL killed it.
Okay.
Like 4 years later. But, you know, that was after I was gone.
4 years later is, you know, a lifetime in web time.
Yes. Yeah.
Anybody else got a question?
Which of these has been your favorite project and why?
I think they all have parts that I really like. Like with Dynamite, oh yeah.
I'm the first, so obviously I'm. So anybody else? I think we're good on that. I actually wanted to ask you a question. So I've been through, I've had a technology startup myself, and I've been through all of that kind of history of technologies. Could you tell us a little bit about how, over the years, how each of these technologies has helped kind of move the ball along, and sort of get an idea, because there's something that always happened to us, right? We were developing something, and it took us a couple of months, and the next cool thing came along, and the devs were like, no, we got to redo the whole thing in this other language. How did you work with the changing technologies that you showed us changed during the development of each one of the different?
Yeah, I mean, technology is like fashion, right? There definitely are trends. I mean,
within the developer community, before you could find a Ruby developer kind of pretty much anywhere, but
yeah.
These days it's a little less so.
Yeah, I don't know what the new hotness is for language.
Any developers in the house?
Is it Go? Is it
Node.js?
Node.js. Okay, yeah. So, yeah. React. Yeah. I don't know, right? I don't think there's a real good answer. I think the good answer is don't get too far behind. I mean, that's the lesson we learned. It's like you got to keep it up, right?
Sure.
You always want to learn new things. And I think you have to try, just try things. But you also don't want to. I mean, if you've got a project with a deadline, don't switch technologies in the middle, right? I mean, that's, get it done and then get it out there and see what happens, and then maybe you can slowly change, not make a dramatic change. It depends on your deadlines and your product release schedule, but.
I actually wanted to ask you something else, because we've already gone through your entire kind of a trajectory right there.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about what you were thinking when you first went to school? In college, when you first went to college, who did you want Adam Beguelin to be at this point in your life?
I didn't really think that far ahead.
Okay.
So my father basically said, okay, I'll send you to school as long as you want, but when you're done, you have to support yourself, right? And so I figured, well, I got to get a PhD, right? Because that's as far as you can go. I gotta soak the old man.
Get the free ride for as long as you can.
And he's like, I'm not going to leave you any money, and you go. I'll support you now, but that's it. And I think that, and we're sort of doing that with our kids. We're like, you can go to school as long as you want, but we're enjoying our lives, right? We're going to spend this money, so you gotta learn some skills, right? And for me, I just sort of looked at some major choices that I had. When I finished undergrad, I figured, well, I got to go for a PhD program. So I applied to a bunch of PhD programs. For me, it came down to two.
I'm sorry, what was that undergrad?
Undergrad was in math and computer science at Emory.
So it was direct. You were always in that kind of route.
Yeah. So I just always liked technology. My father bought me, one of the first computers, right? A Radio Shack TRS-80 back when I was in
build them yourself, soldering stuff.
I didn't solder. No, it was already built, right? But it had a cassette recorder. You store your programs by recording on cassette, right? So it was a while ago. What's that? Audio cassette. Sorry, yes, audio cassette. Yeah.
And the first one got smashed by a brontosaurus.
Yeah. So I was into it, and my parents supported that. But then I think about choices, right? And so for me, I was looking at University of Illinois, which is like a top 10 computer science school. I got in their PhD program, and then I got into the University of Colorado at Boulder, which is maybe, I don't know, top 50 if we're lucky, right? So very different. But I'd lived in Illinois pretty much my whole life. I just wanted to go somewhere else. Colorado was cool, except for the fact that it wasn't highly rated. It was great.
And did you need to have a lot of work to just be able to breathe?
Yeah. It's high, you're a mile high. But I think the thing that actually helped was at University of Illinois, I would have been sort of in the middle or maybe the bottom, right? And at Colorado, I was the star, right? I was this guy that, it became very clear pretty early that I was one of their stars, right? And that helps your ego, right? I think that maybe you shouldn't go to the best school you get into, right? Because it's I don't know. That's some people would argue with that.
No.
People
There's
went
actually
to MIT and things like that. Those guys in the audience. But so that was a gut decision, right? I said, okay, I just want to go to Colorado, and I'm going to do that. And then for grad school or after grad school, the normal thing is go be a professor, right? And so I applied to a bunch of professor program, assistant professor positions, and I got a few offers. Actually, Emory took a leave of absence from Carnegie Mellon. I think also my wife is very supportive, right? She's very entrepreneurial. She said, I'm tired of you being a poor professor. Why don't we go try to get rich in Silicon Valley, right? So let's go do that. And so we did, right? And it was much more interesting, I think. But had I not had that support, again, I think that's family support, right? I wouldn't have done it. Yeah.
All right. So I think we're pretty much done. Anybody else got a question?
You covered it or not, but basically your kind of 3 lessons learned from starting a business. What are kind of 3 things you would focus on, or maybe do different, or just kind of the take-home message?
Oh, what I should do is they have the effed up night, right?
Yeah.
What did you learn from these startups, right? At Trivia, there's really nothing I can complain about, right? I can't think of anything there. At SensorNet, we raised, in the end, we raised almost $2 million, $1.75 million. We were competing with a company called Dropcam that ended up getting bought for $500 million. So what did I learn there? I was treating SensorNet kind of like my clubhouse, right? Like I'm hanging around with my friends, we're writing cool code, and I didn't want to think about sales, right? I didn't want to think about, my plan was that we would get our stuff embedded in cameras. And to do that, I needed a BD guy. I did not hire a BD guy. I had the money, but I didn't do it, right? And I should have. Had I hired a BD guy and we had gotten in a couple of Chinese manufacturers, and our stuff might have taken off, right? So I think that's the lesson learned there. You need business development, right? You can't just be 4 hackers in a room. You can, but you're not going to get.
You're looking to make
money. It didn't
money.
work out in this case, right? You have to really think about how is this going to make money? How is this really going to scale? And so that's the mistake I would say that I made at SensorNet. I knew guys that I could have hired. I knew the chip companies. We spent a lot of time talking to Ambarella. That's the chip in the GoPro camera. You know, I had the connections, but I didn't do it. There was another startup that's not even on the list. I started a company right after Inktomi. We didn't have really